the 45th Division, served in Felix Sparks' company, Guy Prestia, who Todd has interviewed at least once or twice in previous years. And then Todd, I don't know if you followed the conversation via email I've had with Jeff Mann.
Yeah.
Jeff Mann is Carl Mann's son. Carl is still alive, but not able to participate in a conversation. Carl was the interpreter of Felix Sparks.
Wow.
So it's kind of the, story of the Italian campaign moving into France. Basically the story of the Liberator with one of his company men still alive.
Wow.
And Alex Kershaw. So should be pretty good.
And I should tell you, Pete, looking in the waiting room, we have Warren Goss, who's going to be with us. He landed on Utah Beach on D-Day, June 6th. Fantastic interview. Served all the way through to the end of the war. Really great guy. And I think I'll connect you with him. You'll love to interview him. Yeah.
We were talking about Jessica Lynch and a couple other people too. Anyone listening in tonight, if you put them to my website, they can contact me through that. And it sounds like you have enough interviews to keep me busy until.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you're looking for any more, but if you are, he's a great one. I'm
about 2 months backed up right now.
I figured so. Did you get my note about WHIP?
Yes.
Okay. I know that you do your.
I've yet to respond.
Okay.
If I'm not here, I'm at the poker room. Okay. That's the only place I get relief. Oh, if you're going to send me one of those Vietnam veteran boxes, be sure to put some money in it so I can continue. I'm going to lose this stuff right now.
We are live, right, Ellie? We're live on Facebook and YouTube. And on
YouTube.
Well, let's hello YouTube, hello Facebook. It's gonna be tough getting words out of Pete. I know he's kind of a wallflower, but we'll try and make it work. Let's let everybody in, shall we, Elle?
Sounds good.
Hey, welcome everybody to VBC Happy Hour. This is the Veterans Breakfast Club. I am Todd DiPastino, the director of the Veterans Breakfast Club, and we get together every Monday evening at 7 p.m. to talk with veterans about their story, tell their stories, and about the history of the wars that they've been in, their service experiences, whether they liked it or not. And tonight we have Vietnam veteran Pete Mecca, and we were just talking before we went live here on the Zoom side, and I said to Ellie, Pete's kind of another one of those wallflowers. We're going to have a tough time getting any words out of him. Pete, thank you for joining us. Where are you joining us from, Pete?
St. Augustine,
Florida.
Yeah, out of Florida. I'm so shy. I don't know if I can get to everybody's going. Hey, I'm down in St. Augustine, Florida. I just moved down here about a year ago. I love it. Snow's not too thick down here, so yeah. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, Pete, you'll be laughing a lot here, and this is a fascinating interview because Pete is not only a veteran himself, United States Air Force veteran, served in Vietnam, and actually served in Southeast Asia for 2.5 years, Thailand and Vietnam. Did intelligence work, very interesting career, as military career on his own. But he's also made it his mission these last several years to interview other veterans down, mainly in Atlanta. He's done over 400 veteran interviews, in the last few years. I mean, he has way outpaced me. And he manages to get those stories out there through his website. He's published 2 books of them. He has a weekly radio program. He has a weekly newspaper. He really puts me to shame. He's a one-man Veterans Breakfast Club. And I'm so glad he agreed to join us this evening. But before we get to Pete, because he's going to start talking, and it's like letting wild horses out of a barn. I do want to remind everybody that a week from tonight is Vietnam Veterans Day, and we are having our Vietnam Veterans celebration here at this Zoom address at 7 p.m. It's going to be a cool event. We are sending welcome home boxes to every Vietnam veteran that we can. Ellie, I think we're sending over 100 of them, correct?
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, I think we tried to cap it at 100. We still have there's some good stuff in here. If you're not a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, you might be a little disappointed because there is a terrible towel in there. We
Is that a
have,
football team?
excuse me?
Steelers, is that a football team?
I'm not even going to dignify that with an answer. We have, we got some pho. We got some pho ga. You guys like pho ga? Larry Woods does. Yeah, we've got, and we also have, I think we'll be able to sneak this through. I'm a little curious about this. Anybody remember any of the Vietnam veterans remember this?
Absolutely.
Okay. Good. I see some nodding. Good. Apparently, I looked it up. I tried to find what was the most common beer drunk by servicemen in Vietnam. And that's what it seemed to be. It seemed to be Carling's Black Label. I don't feel great about sending it to you all because I went out to the beer store to buy it and I could not believe how cheap it was. Like there has to be something wrong with this stuff. But you're going to get it. Some of you will get it. Some of you might get other stuff. So I just want to remind everybody, a week from tonight, Ellie, if you want to put, I think you probably already have the registration information on the Zoom side and the Facebook Live side so that people could go to the Eventbrite site and register for the event. And please do let us know if you served in the military between 1955 and 1975, because we would really like to send you a welcome home box. And this is the idea of the day. I mean, Vietnam veterans are the only ones who get their own day to celebrate. And it's because of how they were treated when they returned home. It is the national shame that we're still trying to live down, and we're doing it through Vietnam Veterans Day. So we'll do our little part a week from tonight. It should be a lot of fun. We'll have Rocky Bleier joining us and a few other VIPs. We'll have some stories shared, some tribute shared. All right. I'm looking around before we get started. Warren Goss, good to see you, Warren. How are you? You had a birthday, I believe, didn't you? I'm going to ask you to unmute, Warren, if you can. Yeah, if you could unmute yourself, Warren, we can't hear you. Let's see. Hello, Rhonda. Good to see you. I do believe Warren turned maybe 96 or 97.
Wow.
I've lost track. I know he has a March birthday. I'll push ask to unmute one more time.
There.
Yep, there you are. Hey, Rhonda, how are you?
Hi.
Good to see you, Warren.
No.
Warren, you had a birthday, didn't you, a couple weeks ago or last week?
February night, yeah.
Oh, February. I'm sorry.
That's
How old?
right.
What age did you turn?
96.
96.
I
Okay.
think it was anyway. I forget half.
I mean, yeah. Once you get above 95.
Forget it.
And then we have Julia Parsons, who's 100 years old. Hello, Julia, Navy Wave. Great to see you as always. And I'm looking around. Richard Hyde, I haven't seen you on our programs before. I just want to say hello. And if you feel like unmuting yourself and introducing yourself, you'd be very welcome to do that. Beth Ruschel, good to see you. Mark. Hello, Mark. I will not try to pronounce your last name.
It's easy to say. You should be able to say it, Todd, being a paisano. In Italian, it is spiridigliozzi. But that Germanic need in Lancaster County to syllableize everything makes it spiridigliozzi.
Spiridigliozzi. Well, I butcher everybody's name. And I had a cousin once tell me that I pronounced my name incorrectly. So so there was no way I was going to pronounce yours correctly.
That's okay.
Thank you for joining us. There's a great interview with Mark on the internet that I want to share. I'll share here on the Zoom side. I read it. And Mark, I'd love to have you come on and just, chime in with any of your experiences anytime.
Okay. Love to do it, Tom.
Wonderful.
Love to do it. Yes.
Wonderful. And I'm looking around, but just before we get to Lisa Refner, good to see you. And all right. I think those are the new faces. So Pete Mecca, how are you?
Doing good. Is that Richard Hyde, Dick Hyde from Atlanta, Georgia?
It might be. Let's see. Let's ask Richard if he could unmute himself.
There we go. Okay, I guess I'm unmuted now, right?
Well, you're unmuted. How you doing, Dick?
Yeah, I'm okay, Pete. How are you?
Still kicking after all these years. Good to see you, man.
Well, I miss all our good stuff.
I know, Mr. World War II Roundtable. That's coming around. We're going to do some Zoom work on the World War II Roundtable.
Oh, we are? Okay, good. Look forward to it.
All right, good to see you, Dick.
So, Pete,
Yeah.
thanks again for coming on. And tell me how you were smart enough to join the Air Force.
Well, let's see. The Army had a program at that time that you could take your physical and try to qualify for Army chopper school before you signed the dotted line. I'd already earned my pilot's license on Cessnas, 150s and 172s in college, so I wanted to fly. After my physical, they said, well, Mr. Mecca, you can't be a pilot. You don't have perfect vision, but we'll put you in a chopper. And I said, okay, what as? And they said, a door gunner. And I said, hey, Air Force recruiting station is right down the road here. I'm going to go to the Air Force. So I went down to the Air Force. That's why I joined the Air Force. Plus, my dad was Air Force veteran from World War II. He flew across the hump, the Himalayan mountain range.
Oh, he was CBI. He was an air crewman member, C-47 maybe.
Master Sergeant in supply. He flew across the hump. Sorry.
Yeah.
C-47.
Yeah. And you did not want to be a door gunner, helicopter door gunner in Vietnam.
Oh, life expectancy, what, 10 seconds? I don't
Exactly.
think so.
Yeah.
No reflection on the door gunners. A lot of my buddies became door gunners and everything else, but I want to get on the airplane. I wanted to be a part of the crew and fly. I wanted to be behind the controls of the chopper. Of course, I couldn't fly in the Air Force because of my vision too, and I wasn't a college graduate at the time, but I knew that I could get on an airplane.
Right.
With my background, so I did.
Pete, you did something that I find so interesting that I'd never heard of. Before you went to Southeast Asia, you did something called radar prediction on a B-52.
That was one of my jobs from the intelligence training that I got in Denver, Colorado. That was called terrain avoidance. If you fly in any kind of aircraft high enough and look at a radar scope, you can ascertain the rivers and the towns. It's pretty easy, really, once you get used to it. But when you get low, that radar screen it's scrambled, okay? It's called terrain avoidance. So you can't really see what's down there unless you know what you're looking at through the topography of a map. B-52s used to train to go over Russia or China or any enemy territory at high altitude, so they couldn't be shot down. Well, our enemies got smart enough to develop their surface-to-air missiles. They could reach those altitudes, so we had to go down on the deck to get to the target. And so that's called terrain avoidance. You're flying at 800 feet off the deck with the B-52. That will jar 800 feet. That will, there you go. That's my voice. It will jar your teeth out. But that's the only way you can get there. So when you get that low, though, your radar scope's useless unless you know how to predict the radar scope in advance. And you do that by going to the topography of a map. There's special instrument you use. You can put up the little cliff, the little edges of a mountain and everything else. It looks like spaghetti, but you can make an IP, identification points, that way. And the pilots via the radar navigator can follow that into the target. and those guys were good. I mean, I did the predictions. They enjoyed them. They thought I was real good at it. But bless their hearts, man. Put it this way. One of our targets was Moscow. And the IP they had chosen was a radio tower, about 200-foot radio tower. And I thought for a minute, I said, wait a minute, there's going to be ballistic missiles hitting Moscow before we ever get there. So I went down and talked to the colonel. I said, Colonel, by the time our bombers get to Moscow, that radio tower is going to be melted, okay? And he said, well, just tell them to drop the bomb on the big glow. So that's what happened down at Orlando. That's McCoy Air Force Base. It's now no longer there. We had U-2s down there. We used to go over Cuba and stuff like that. It's kind of interesting.
So, and here is, I think I'm sharing. Am I sharing my screen here?
A little bit. I think got some B-52s on.
It's a B-52. I was going to, and you'll see this is a low-flying B-52 with escorts. And I just want to give people a sense of the power of this thing.
I think it's frozen.
Oh, it is frozen. Dang it! Dang it! Dang it! Dang it! Could have. That's my problem with sharing, I guess. I mean, the idea that you would fly this beast at a low level at 800 feet is just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, good pilots. Right now, the B-52, there is no B-52 pilot older than the airplane they're flying. Yeah, we got a new generation of pilots. They're all young. B-52 still hanging around. It's probably going to be there until, I think it's projected like 2050. That's incredible. That's almost 100 years of service for a bomber. What a great instrument war. I used to fly with Major Ward usually. And after I left for Southeast Asia, Major Ward took off from Orlando and he lost some of his packs. That's part of the engine setup and everything else. But he lost and the plane was going down. They had to get out of the aircraft. It crashed off the Daytona Beach, several miles out. But it was so low that
there's that woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was with. I have her picture.
I'll mute Warren. Okay, go ahead.
It was so low that I would have gotten out because the only way I got out, I had to wait for the radar navigator to eject downward. Okay. And he may have gotten out, but I wouldn't have had time to get out. So,
oh my.
God graced me on that deal.
Did you go right from McCoy in Florida to Thailand?
Yes, I did.
And where were you in Thailand?
Called Nakhon, Phanom, NKP. It's up in the northeast corner of Thailand. It's a very remote base. Used to be a Thai Navy base. They patrolled along the Mekong River, but we turned it into an Air Force base. We had no jets except for a couple of Lear jets. It was all prop-driven aircraft, rescue choppers, A-1E Sky Raiders. We had the OV-10 Broncos, and we had the A-20. There you go, the A-26 A-26. They're beautiful, beautiful. From World War II, great interdiction aircraft, but the wings started falling off, so we had to go down. Can I use the arrow? See that right there?
Oh, I'll do it again. Here, yeah. Here, I'll point stuff out for you. Hold on a second. Look at this. Hold on a second. Okay, hold on. Look at this.
Okay, you see where the arrow is? Or you took the arrow down. Take the arrow down on the bottom. There we go, right there. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the project. That was a top secret crypto site. That's where that's what we used the intelligence to interdict the Ho Chi Minh Trail. It was also called Igloo White. Some of you may know that. We controlled just about everything that hit the trail. It was very interesting work.
Were you called Task Force A?
Yes, we were.
That's it. Okay, I've read about it.
Task Force Alpha.
Yep. Alpha. Sorry about that. Alpha.
McNamara's Wall. We had, if I was going to be intelligence, that had to be a great assignment. I love the Thai people, but it was very interesting work. I mean, 12 hours was not enough to do your job. But last time I checked, Todd, it may be gone now, but I checked years ago with the what is it? The MapQuest satellite. It was still there. The site was. It may be gone now, but it was still there. And I used to talk about it a little bit, and I stopped talking about it because I found out that it was still in use. Now, the Ho Chi Minh, the Ho Chi Minh Trail, of course, is now a tourist attraction. Okay, you can go over there and walk down the trail if you want to. I don't think I want to. There's too much unexploded ordnance around there. But they were still active. Okay, if that was active, I don't know what they were monitoring. I don't know what they were keeping an eye on, but so I sort of shut up about that. But I think the building's been torn down now.
Yeah, and I was going to say, there's the part of the Ho Chi Minh Trail has been made a highway, and there are bike trips every year, or there was before COVID, people biking on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, or what was the Ho Chi Minh Trail. They've built bridges on parts of the trail. It's part of it is a lot of it you can't go on, but some of it you can. I want to ask you about this monitoring of the Ho Chi Minh Trail that you did from Thailand. And first of all, I want to say two things. Number one, I think we Americans need to be reminded that a lot of people who we call Vietnam veterans served in Thailand. That Thailand, I mean, Larry Googans is with us tonight. I know that he flew hundreds of missions over North Vietnam. I don't believe he ever stepped foot in Vietnam. Maybe he 5 times.
No, I flew in South Vietnam, but I only flew 5 times up in North Vietnam.
Okay.
Because it was 1970 when we were standing down for the most part.
Okay. But you were stationed in Thailand, and you weren't. I mean,
Right.
How many times did you actually set foot in Vietnam?
On the ground, foot on the ground twice,
Twice.
and that's landing at Da Nang to refuel.
Okay.
I went from one more time, and I was in Saigon once.
Were you flying out of Ubon?
Karat.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of our Vietnam veterans served in Thailand, and I think that's just fascinating that Thailand played a really important role in this war in Southeast Asia. And your job in particular was a fascinating one because it was monitoring the movements of the NVA, the North Vietnamese Army, down the supply route known as the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And you were doing it with these seismic and acoustic monitors.
Right. The acoustics usually dropped out of a chopper. They would parachute down, hang in the trees. That way we could hear the enemy, okay, coming down the trail. The seismic, very sharp point on the end, it would drop. You could hear the movement of the enemy coming down the trail. The seismics had a rubber skinny tree sticking out of the top. That's supposed to fool there you go. There you go. That's a seismic sensor right there. Now somebody has removed the tree. Okay, it used to be a skinny little tree sticking up. Good camouflage if you were dropped in the jungle, but as you can see, it's fairly well exposed like that. You want me to tell the story of the strange movement we detected that time?
Yeah, please do.
It was good. We, through experience, we knew the rumbling or the sound of a truck or a tank, soldiers walking by. We knew if a buffalo was going by. We knew those kind of seismic movements. One time we were picking up sounds we could not decipher. We had no idea what it was. I was told they sent a commando team over there. They came back laughing their fannies off. What had happened, the North Vietnamese had found some of the seismic sensors, and the trucks and everything else went on by, but they lined up their troops and took turns urinating on our seismic sensor. So somewhere in the Air Force archives, there's probably a recording or some kind of a message that will tell you this is what it sounds like if the enemy is urinating on your seismic sensor. Vietnamese they were ingenious. Those people have been fighting for 2,000 years. So they figured out very simple ways to fool our technology. And urinating was one of them.
It was one of them. And let's see, I'm going to try and show, here's some images of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, just for those of you who need a little refresher. The Ho Chi Minh Trail was this 10,000-mile network. It wasn't just one trail. It was a network of footpaths and paved roads and gravel roads, all cut out of the mountain jungle that stretched from about the middle of North Vietnam and came down just northwest of Saigon through Laos and Cambodia before curving back into Vietnam. And this was the network that the North Vietnamese used to supply the insurgents, the Viet Cong of the South. And it took an army within an army to keep this supply route working, open. You had 300,000 people working on it at any one time. Every day, 200 tons of supplies and 50 men infiltrated from north to south on the Ho Chi Minh Trail every single day. These trucks that you see in this picture, they would have drivers. They would be blacked out. They would drive on a mountain road that was cut out of the jungle. They would have to know turn by turn where they were going without vision. They couldn't see the road. They could never turn on lights. And it was so demanding that they would maybe memorize a mile or two, and then they would turn the wheel over to somebody who would then know the next mile or two. When that failed, they would often just take bicycles like this, 500 pounds per bicycle, 20,000 bicycles on the trail at any one time. And that's how they delivered 200 tons per day. And this is the kind of movement that people like Pete were working to detect. And then it was called interdiction, right? To stop it.
Right. If you looked at those photos of the trucks, that was not a paved highway. Okay. They didn't have traffic lights like you're talking about. They didn't have the markers in the middle of the road. Okay. We were bombing dirt. And by the time some of our planes got back to base, there you go. Our planes got back to base, the coolies were already out there filling in the holes. Right. Now they would come down and we would defoliate some of it, but a lot of it was still heavily triple canopy jungle. We lost a lot of pilots in that interdiction program too. But they would have what you call truck parks. During the day, they would pull into jungle areas called truck parks. They were very well concealed.
Yep.
Some of them were big enough to have hospitals, movie theaters, recreation areas. Some of them were smaller. If you saw the front of a truck sticking out from a recon photo, we didn't hit it. We learned very quickly when a truck broke down, it was no longer useful. They would stick the nose of the truck out just enough so that we could catch it on a photo, and it was a decoy. We'd be bombing a jungle, dirt, and the truck park may really be 2 miles down the trail, maybe a mile down the trail. It was pretty much art. Our photo recon guys and the interpreters got pretty good at it. They could usually find the truck parks. We would hit them. I wouldn't want to be under B-52 attack. I can tell you that right now.
Oh, and it was brutal work. If you were a North Vietnamese soldier assigned to the Ho Chi Minh Trail, odds are you were not coming home.
No. Yeah, that's true. We 3 B-52s flying in a triangle formation like that from 30,000 feet. When they drop their payload, it covers an area significant of, I think it was 385 football fields. Okay. There you go. You didn't want to be around those things. We hit one area supposed to be in a troop concentration, and it wiped out a full, either a battalion or regiment. I forgot what it was, but the only survivor was a North Vietnamese lieutenant, and he had been educated in the United States, and he came out flying the white flag. He said, "I'll never want to go under that kind of bombing again." It was an awesome weapon, but then again, folks, look at what you're bombing. You're bombing jungle and you're bombing dirt. It was almost impossible to interdict that thing. We did it as best we could. Dow Chemical invented a chemical that we use the C-130s to drop on some of the mountain roads, and the mountain roads would melt. They would just slide away into the jungle. Okay, they would melt, and we go, there we go, man. We got the cure. Here it is, right there. Well, North Vietnamese, they just learned to find the packs and throw them over the side of the mountain. So
It was called Operation Commando Lava. And the idea was to make mud, not war.
Yeah.
And so it was a powder that would be, sewn onto the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And the people who were tending the Ho Chi Minh Trail would kind of brush it off and try and get it off, because once it got wet, it just made it into a sticky, muddy mess. But that's what Agent Orange was used for, of course, to defoliate the trail. There was a cloud seeding program called Operation Popeye to try to extend the monsoon season. All kinds of efforts to stop, to clear out the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Man, it was a big part of the war, a big part of the American war effort.
Well, that's the only way after a while they could get their supplies down to South Vietnam.
Yep.
We could cut the ships off going into Cambodia to bring them up into South Vietnam, and their little junk Navy and little saipans coming down from North Vietnam. Right. We finally put a stop to them. Navy didn't do it. The Navy's ships were their draft was too deep. They brought the Coast Guard over. The Coast Guard had shallow draft ships. They had a very dangerous job. When they stopped these saipans or junks, it only took one hand grenade, tossed to the Coast Guard vessels. They had a very dangerous job, but very brave men. I've interviewed Art Katz. He did that in Vietnam, and they were scared to death every day. But I guess the Vietnamese were too. But the Ho Chi Minh Trail became just about their only avenue for supplies. And you say trail, I think it was Highway 1 or 1A, we named it, at least where I was. It was a 4-lane dirt highway.
Yeah.
So you just can't. I got so disgusted bombing dirt when I know targets in North Vietnam, and you probably have some pilots on here that went downtown Hanoi, that we had restricted targets and we couldn't hit what was vital, and we were bombing dirt. And some of the guys didn't come back from that. That was heartbreaking to me.
I want to invite people to make comments. We have, Ben Wright, who flew C-130s. We have Larry Googans, who flew F-4s. And then we have several other people, many other people. Bill Moran served in Vietnam. George Slook, Clem Blazewick. Please do, Mark. Please do feel free to speak up, ask a question.
I'd like to add the other end of what Pete did, and thank you for what you did.
Thank you, sir.
The missions that I flew out of Karat were primarily up and down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. We started probably the furthest north we went. You saw on that previous map, Magia Pass. There's a Bangkarai Pass that came out of North Vietnam. They were very, very highly defended, but that's where it came and started the Ho Chi Minh Trail. But those sensors, and Pete, you'll have to help me, those sensors would report to the 121s or the ABCCC and relay it to the forward air controllers or the gunships at night. And that's where they would try to find where something was moving.
Right.
But you mentioned, Pete, you called them suspected truck parks. We called them suspected tree parks. Because for the most part, by the time we got there was nothing underneath them. Yeah. They were gone. And I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. And everything he talked about was those sensors and all that. That's what reported back and tried to get us to find them. Yeah. But I will tell you that up north, it was actually up towards Steel Tiger, up in the PDJ. There's a target up there, and I'll never forget the name of it. It was Sierra Charlie 900. We bombed that daily, and from being a vegetated area, we bombed it until it was all desert, and then went back and they had plowed it through, and we bombed it again. And then the next day they plowed it again. You got the story. Yeah. And then drive through at night. Only once did I fly when we found, I don't know if they dropped that lava stuff. I didn't know about that, but we found a convoy stuck in a low area. And we came there like 7 a.m. in the morning or something like that. And that's the only time I really remember strafing a convoy like you watch on TV. But they were gone. There was nobody. They knew. The trucks were there. They weren't. But anyway, thanks. Thanks, Pete.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your service. And welcome home.
Hey, Pete, Jack, how you
Back at
doing,
you,
my
Pete.
friend?
Thank you.
Hey, Jack. That's my deputy commander from the Atlanta World War II Roundtable. How you doing there, Jack?
Doing fine. You were talking about the Navy not being able to get up in the rivers that much, but they had those small boats that would go up there with 50 calibers on there. And of course, like you say, if they got close to anything, they were in big trouble. But I've talked to quite a few veterans of ours that were on those things. And
You're talking about swift boats.
yeah.
And the riverine, is that what the riverine, also, yeah.
They had, in fact, one of my neighbors, one time when I was, he lived next door to me. He was actually on an airboat, and they had the machine guns on the front of the airboat, just like you see down in the Everglades. And that's what he went up and down the river on. But that doesn't sound much fun.
No, I don't think I'd want to be on an airboat.
No.
Now they didn't have thermal back then, did they?
Right.
Imaging.
Right. All right. That's interesting. I didn't know about the airboats. I'd love to talk to one of the veterans that was on an airboat in Vietnam. That'd be one heck of a story.
Oh yeah, he was telling me a lot about it. But now they didn't have thermal imaging back then, right? If I remember correctly.
Later in the war, they started getting that. We started getting a lot of infrared stuff in, but that was just about the time I left. We started getting the smart bombs in there. We could hit a target with one bomb instead of sending a flight of 4 F-4s over there and drop what they call dumb ordnance. If Vietnam did anything, it surely improved our technology about bombing targets. I know that the gentleman who flew from Karat, he probably remembers too that we also hit the POL dumps. That's petroleum, oil, and lubricants, and they were hard to find too. But when you found one, especially ammo dump, if you hit it right, the explosions went off for 2 days. These guys, they knew what they were doing. And I can tell you this, a lot of people don't know this, there was an oil pipeline coming down from North Vietnam and towards South Vietnam for years. It was made out of bamboo. Very easy to repair, very easy to fix, but it did the job. Now, later in the war towards 71 and 72, and for the final push, parts of the Ho Chi Minh Trail were paved, and they had actual pipelines running down. A lot of effort wasted. A lot of young men lost their lives. To Larry, I'm glad you made it home, buddy. Welcome home.
Back at you. Thank you very much. But I was lucky. We lost 5 in our squadron, but they're mostly up north by Bank Ride Pass and the passes coming out of North Vietnam at the beginning of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, because that was heavily defended, because that was the entrance. That was the sole entrances to the Ho Chi Minh Trail up north. So if you could stop them there, you did good, but it was heavily defended.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
The POL strikes, the petroleum oil lubrication tanks, the idea was that Russia was providing North Vietnam with their petroleum, most of their petroleum coming in through Haiphong Harbor. It was being then stored in big tanks. The idea is if you could, destroy the tanks, you could destroy the fuel, and the trucks won't be able to go down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. I believe it was a CIA originally targeted operation that moved to the Air Force. That it was highly successful. I mean, 80% of all the POLs were hit. I think 80% in North Vietnam, and yet the supplies still came down the trail. And that is, again, because they were using this kind of human labor, not even using trucks all the time, but they increased the number of bicycles that they had to bring the supplies down to the south. And then you had this army that you had an army to maintain it, and then you had an army to repair the Ho Chi Minh Trail. I think, Pete, you said something like, within hours after a part of it would be hit, you'd have this army, often women, who are filling in the pothole, filling in the bomb crater.
Absolutely. If you look at that one photo you have of the little bridge right there.
Yeah.
Okay. That, and Larry can verify this, that had to be a direct hit. If you had bomb craters around it, that really does no good. You have to hit that directly. But if it's like a ford, a river ford across a river, it may be a dirt ford about 2 inches under the water, and they were hard to spot. But still, again, if you blew that up, by the time the jets got back to Thailand or wherever they came from, maybe carrier off the in Tonkin Gulf, the coolies had already thrown some dirt out there and repaired the darn thing. Hell of a way to fight a war.
Yeah, heck of a way to fight a war. Ed Blank, your screen is checked, and I don't know if that means that you are raising your hand. That's a new one to me. Ellie, do you know what a check on a green check mark?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've never seen that. If anybody knows. Ed, do you know?
Probably Viet Cong.
He's Irish. He's still celebrating St. Patty's Day.
It means yes.
It was when I checked on the list of participants at the beginning, I saw this screen check and I didn't know what that was going to do. And I pushed it. My name was right above yours. And I pushed it and it put it. I didn't realize it was on the screen. I don't look at me when we're doing this. That's where it came. I'm sure it won't be there next time. I won't.
Oh, hey, Ben, you just checked yours. So, Ben, you know what it is. Ben Wright, tell me. Look, he has an X.
It says yes.
Oh, yeah, there's an X. Huh.
That's what it says is yes.
Oh.
Or an X for no.
Oh, so if
a red X for no and a green check for yes.
Okay.
Yes and no what?
So I could ask a question. I could say, is Todd the greatest guy around?
And we could all click an X.
And you
no.
can click.
I can't find a red X quick enough.
That's right. A screen full of X's, red X's.
By the way, Todd, you mentioned the CIA in Laos and Cambodia. That's incorrect, sir. We did not have the CIA there. That was Air America.
Air America. My apologies. Did you know anybody who Air America?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you did? You did? George Kniss.
Sorry?
You have George Kniss has his hand up. If you don't.
Okay, I had a question for him. When I was there, we were supporting we were the 13th Reconnaissance Technical Squadron. We supported RF 101s out of Tan Son Nhut, but also out of Don Mueang at Thailand. And we supported RB 57s also. And did you ever see many RF 101s flying out of bases in Thailand? Because we had some that they would dispatch north, but then we would never hear from them again, except when they needed more photo backup and processing and stuff like that. But I can't imagine that, I know they were flying out of Da Nang to get closer to North Vietnamese recon. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, we can hear you.
Okay. So I'm just curious about the recon, the low level recon you were getting. Which aircraft were doing that?
Just about every one. I mean, the U-2s, SR-71s, we had F-4 recon planes. You had 105s doing it. You had Navy planes doing it.
Right.
You had air commandos on the ground doing it. The intelligence or the photo recon would somehow you got to remember now that the director for IBM, the Southeast Asian director, Mr. Durango, was also at the project where I was, the top secret. There was so much computer work back then, and it all came to us through all these systems. We had computer technology back in the late 60s that, I don't know, they were just as good as what we got today.
Right, right.
So all this would come in, and no, I did not see any F-105s or 101s. I never saw any of the jet aircrafts in Thailand because I was at Nakhon, Phanom, and we didn't have any jet aircraft except for the Lear jets that belonged to Durango and to General Willie McBride. But I know the 101s, I'm sure they took a lot of the photos, but quite frankly, the intelligence would come in and we didn't know who took the photos. We were just interested in looking at the photos.
Right. Here's one of my most prized photos of recon.
Is that Chicago?
That's Saigon, 1964, in a 9x18 contact photo.
Wow.
From the 101s would fly in to Tan Son Nhut, but I'm sure things got better.
Yeah.
But, recon was a big thing, and the intelligence you guys gathered was so specific and so good, but it would still could not overcome the ingenuity of the North Vietnamese. That's what struck me.
No,
they were on it every minute. It was just like you said.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, sir. It was interesting. I did the interdiction from NKP and saw all the photo intelligence coming in. And after that, I went to Saigon to a recon outfit, photo recon outfit. So I saw both sides of the story there about photo recon work. I had a very interesting time in Southeast Asia. Died some rockets and motors, but I never came close to getting hit. I remember a kid coming up to me at Social Circle Middle School. And after presentation, the kid came up and the teacher said, he just wants to shake your hand. I said, oh, well, thank you very much. And I shook his hand and said, well, thank you, son. He said, yes, sir, I've never met a real hero. Okay. And, I wasn't a hero. I've interviewed Medal of Honor recipients, and they will tell you they're not heroes either. It was the men behind me. It was the guys that didn't get out that are the real heroes. I keep telling people we came home baby killers, and now people call us heroes. Yeah. And we were neither. We were just another generation that did their job, and we had to do it under almost impossible rules of engagement. And we lost the faith of our government, and most of the people in America eventually turned against us, or at least turned against the war.
The war.
Rich Gotch, Rich, I know you've had your hand up for a while. Sorry, I missed it there. Rich Gotch, what would you like to say?
Well, I sat on the other end of that, on the Comer bypass at Nui Bar Raw. That's where the one of the trails were dumped out on, and they came through every night. We're talking hundreds of them would come through, but they would avoid us. Their goal was to get around us at night, and now in the daytime they were coming back to get more stuff. That's when the trouble really started. And those sensors, you could take those sensors and you could shove them somewhere, because all they picked up were dogs. So as far as I knew, dogs and monkeys and baboons. And you didn't need a lot of photo recon to find out where they're at. They were right in front of me.
Tell me, Rich, here's another map, and this is a very, very crude map of the Ho Chi Minh Trail coming down through Laos in Cambodia and into Vietnam. And you can see it has 4 different spill points, 4 or 5 up here in the north and 2 core, and then here in 3 core. Where were you, Rich?
I'm on a phone here, and I'm trying to open that up so I can see it.
Well, let me ask you this. Were you kind of near Cu Chi, the Iron Triangle, or were you farther north?
Oh, I was right in the Parrot's Beak. I was right on the Cambodian border.
Okay. So that's right here.
There was a town there called Song Bay, which has since been, they eliminated it.
Got it. So yeah, you were here right at the southernmost spill points of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And And your job was to stop them. Your job essentially was to wait for them and stop them.
We sat across, well, and they came through every night.
How'd they get around you?
Just snuck around. Well, I was with the Arvins, and they weren't necessarily interested in, let's say, interdiction there. I mean, we're talking thousands against you. And we did some damage, but it was just ridiculous what was going on.
Yeah. So they weren't always the most enthusiastic of allies.
Well, you start getting beat up all the time. It doesn't take long to figure it out. What's going on here,
right?
Or how may exist for the next day.
Rich, what did you mean when you said they eliminated Song Bay? That's one of the places I spent some time.
You look on the current maps, the communists eradicated. It's gone. It's not on the map. It's nowhere.
I wonder what that means.
They bulldozed it in the ground.
Ooh.
And it's spelled Song Bay, B-A-Y?
Yeah,
no,
just like the river.
S-O-N-G-B-E.
S-O-N-G-B-E.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was out about 2 miles outside that in a little suburb called Fuquoc, one of those types of towns, and that's where we had built that base there, that fort. Yeah, but that was right at the base of Nui Bar Ra. That's one of the two largest mountains there in the southern parts of Vietnam. The other was Nui Ba Den.
Huh.
But Nui Bar Ra, they would come around that mountain, and I was sitting there on the southern side of it. Me and battalion, 1,200 guys.
Mm.
There was a big fuel dump there that they used for aircraft coming in and out of, and you know what? It was never hit. Nobody ever shot into it. Nobody ever threw a hand grenade into it. I wonder why. That's where they were getting their fuel.
Here is a shot of the Song Bay signal site. I don't know if you remember this at all, Ed and Rich. It's one of many photos I found of Song Bay, Vietnam.
Let's see if I can get it up on this. Yeah, that's the little, in the background, there's that Air Force runway they put in, and just to the left of that is where the fuel dump was.
Oh, okay.
And I put that fort in further to the left. Nui Bar Ra, the mountain was back here, back towards the start of the bottom of the picture.
Okay. Huh.
And this runway was manned by the Air Force, and every time they would get somebody would loft some mortars into it, I'd take a truck up there and we'd steal some of the runway, some of the steel casements, put them on top of our hooches, and they would just write it off as war damage.
That's not stealing, sir. That is requisitioning.
Yeah.
Todd, you were talking about the entry points along the South Vietnamese border with Laos and Cambodia.
Yes.
Yeah, there were major entry points. Everybody knows that. But if that was blocked up, or we had it blocked, luckily, they had dozens. I mean, you're talking about a triple canopy jungle, and it's just hard to find them down there. And it's their backyard. Okay, it's just, I keep telling people, if the Chinese came over here and took over this country, and you and I had to go up in the Smoky Mountains or the Rocky Mountains, suddenly we're the insurgents. We speak the local language. We know the trails. We know the roads. We know the people we can trust and things like that. That's what we were involved in over there. We were in their backyard. It's just like when our troops went in Germany. That was their home turf. And
When I called a airstrike in, I never requested napalm because it never got to the ground. Stayed up in the trees.
Stayed up in the trees.
You could sit there and watch it come, on top, just burn some of the leaves off.
Yeah.
You had to bring in HE first and then the napalm.
Yeah.
Can I throw in a question?
Go ahead.
Were any of you guys there when Nixon did the incursion into Cambodia? Because that seemed like the last desperate measure to stop the flow into the southern part of Vietnam anyway, because we didn't have enough troops to actually secure the border, and we were doing everything short of that. But then he sent in the troops into Cambodia, I think, to try to cut off the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and ultimately wasn't successful either.
Okay, I know we have Bill Moran. You were there. Don't try and hide. Bill was there, part of the invasion of Cambodia. George Slook, I know you also. Yeah, what would you like to say?
I was in the 4th Infantry, and we invaded Cambodia on May 1. Now, those of us in camp didn't learn about it until we read it in the Stars and Stripes. The guys that were coming back, the foot soldiers coming back, they had different mud on their shoes, but they had no clue.
Are you saying, George, they didn't know where they had been?
No, we didn't know where they were sent.
We didn't know where they were sent.
Yeah, they took our unit. We crossed into Cambodia. There's no big sign that says "Welcome to Cambodia." Okay, everybody remembers that. So we went in there on the 1st, and literally, I didn't hear about it till I read about it in the Stars and Stripes newspaper a month later. And I'm 7 miles from the border in Pleiku. So that's kind of the dark way we operate it. Yeah.
Todd, can I speak up on that?
You sure can. And I'd love Bill Moran also to share his memory of that, the invasion of Cambodia. We could talk about it. And then also something else that has come up, and that is when you are in country, when you're in a war, how do you get your news? How do you know what's going on in the war that you're fighting? I'm so struck. Pete Mecca, in an interview that I saw with him recently with Joe Galloway, he said, I would learn what was happening in the Vietnam War. This is when he was in Vietnam. I would learn what's happening in the Vietnam War from the new guys who are coming from the United States. They would tell us the news.
That's true.
Unbelievable to me.
Now you have to remember that there were 4 corps in Vietnam: I Corps, 2 Corps, 3 Corps, 4 Corps. I've interviewed guys who were in 4 Corps down the Mekong Delta. And we're talking, I'm saying, the Marines up in I Corps, and they said, well, what was I Corps?
They have no idea. Right.
Most people were just centralized on surviving in the area they were at. Now, getting back to Cambodia, I'm in the intelligence room probably a week before that happened. We had no idea what was going on, but they came in and said, all right, start planning all these recon missions. We're going into Cambodia. And I went, oh, holy cow. Okay. So we started doing that. We stayed up 3 days and 3 nights plotting all the missions for the recon stuff going into Cambodia. Now, when they went in, as with most things in Vietnam, they didn't complete the mission. They got so far and they stopped. We recovered or destroyed a lot of supplies, found a lot of storage facilities and ammo caches, things like that. But we stopped. We didn't complete the job. And that was through the public pressure that Nixon started feeling. And so he pulled us back out. I know that the guys on the ground, most of them, when they found out they were going into Cambodia, they were thrilled. They were excited because it was payback time. They couldn't cross. They couldn't chase the enemy to where the enemy was. And they got so burned out on that. Well, finally, payback came. And they went in there and they were ready to kick some ass. But they were told to stop. If you recall, after the North Vietnamese won that war, Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, they started acting up against the North Vietnamese. North Vietnamese went in there and they went all the way. They cleaned them out. That's what we should have done. with the North Vietnamese when they're in Cambodia. You had to push them out. I don't know if you knew this, but when Kennedy first got us involved, Eisenhower started, but when Kennedy got us deeply involved with the advisors and everything, he and McNamara and the intelligence community, they had thought about building a wall, much like the wall across the DMZ, all the way to the Mekong River over in Thailand. That way they could block the traffic coming down from North Vietnam. Kennedy said that the war will be won or lost in Laos. And he was right. The reason they didn't build that barrier, that division, that divide all the way through Laos, they knew that the North Vietnamese may start going through Thailand. Okay. And they just didn't want to do that. It was almost going to be impossible to fight that kind of war. I think Eisenhower had it right. He said, never involve American boys in a ground war in Southeast Asia. And yeah, raiding the sanctuary. What you need to read is a dereliction of duty about the Vietnam War. You will be shocked at what you find in there.
By McMaster's.
Yeah.
People might remember, for those of you who are kind of wondering, what this whole thing about Cambodia was. Cambodia was technically a neutral country. The United States said that they were not fighting the war in Cambodia. But in late April, President Nixon ordered that ground troops be sent across the border into Cambodia to pursue Viet Cong weapons. And it was announced May 1st, I believe. And it really prompted a whole bunch of protests here back home. It ended up being a highly unpopular move. Pat Hughes, how are you? Hey, Pat, you have your, okay. How you doing, Pat? Oh, I can't hear you. We can't hear you, Pat. Although you are unmuted, but your mic doesn't seem to. Yeah, try it again. Try to unmute again. Try to unmute one more time. There you go. Okay. Mic's not working. We can't hear you. At least I can't. I'm sorry about that. Don Wolf. Don, were you going to say something? Here, why don't you unmute yourself, Don?
Okay, Todd, thank you.
Oh, hey, there's Don Wolf and Don Nemchek. How you doing, Don Nemchek?
I'm doing well, sir. Just real quickly about communications. As a radioman, I was on a carrier, and we were in the Gulf of Tonkin for 60 straight days on the gun line. Well, as radiomen, we get all the information first, before the skipper, before anybody else. Most of it, general information, came what was called the fleet broadcast. They picked up the AP, UPI wire. So we had a printout of kind of the highlights and the headlines of the day. So we knew everything, including what was probably most important to everybody was the sports teams, their hometown sports teams. Hey, who won the ball game? Who won the Super Bowl, etc. So radio men were, we'll just say, the fair-haired boys of the crew, because as we're walking through the ship and going down to the chow hall, everybody knows you're a radio and they would call us Scoop. Hey, Scoop, what's the scoop? Okay. And we'd say, oh, man, the Pirates won the 1971 World Series and Clemente hit a home run. And just those little highlights. You'd be surprised how much that meant to everybody, because we're out at sea. This is before internet, before everything else. And again, we were flying combat air ops, and we were very busy. There wasn't a lot of time for just general stuff like that. Also, and a lot of these fellows may remember this, mail call was so important. Snail mail coming in, guys get their letters. Some guys get more than others. Oftentimes we would read our letters to our shipmates, and the most coveted ones were the ones from the girlfriends, the ones that were SWAK, sealed with a kiss. And some of the sailors, some of the guys would tell some of the details of those letters to the other fellows, and we'd all get a kick out of it. But that was just the camaraderie amongst the crew members and such. A lot of guys on the ship, again, would come to the radio men and just say, hey, man, what's going on? Because, again, we knew before the skipper. So it was the way communications was. I know guys in the bush, in the field, they didn't even have that type of information unless they went back to their base camp out in the rear or something like that to find out what was going on. But I'll be interested to hear other sailors, some of their comments on how they learned the things, especially on the smaller ships. oftentimes they would rely on the aircraft carriers to pick up that fleet broadcast and get the information over them because their communication just wasn't as, we'll just say, as vast and as sophisticated as ours was. We had CTF 77, the commander of the task force, flag admiral on our ship. So we had probably the best communications that were possible during that time.
Hey, rub it in. We had the Saigon Post.
SWAK, sealed with a kiss. Cheryl Vaughn, I think you sent some of those to Dan Vaughn when he was at boot camp, Marine training. Mark, you have your hand up. Oh, I'm sorry. I muted you accidentally. Asked to unmute. I'm going to ask to yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go.
Is that better?
That is good.
You know, it's an interesting question you pose about how you get the communications from about the war while you were in it. And I never really thought about that much until you posed that question. I had a brother who was in the Air Force and served a lot of time in Vietnam before I got there. He was there for about 18 months, mostly in the Saigon area. And we crossed paths as I was leaving. I was there April 68 through April of 69. As Nick and I crossed paths, he said to me, don't believe what you're hearing and what you're seeing. And he said, especially you as an infantryman, you want to make sure that you get good news. And I'm going to make sure you get good news. So he would clip and airmail all of the articles out of the newspaper, and I would be in the field, and I would get what's happening more there than I ever got from Stars and Stripes or Armed Forces Vietnam Network or any of the institutes that were supposedly giving us the up-to-date news. So it was an interesting point that I guess I never and thanks, Todd, for stirring that memory bank that I sometimes chuck into the back seat. So
I just learned a long time ago, I've been working with veterans for 13 years, that when there is a war on and you're in the military and you're in the war, you are aware of that space around you.
Survival.
Survival. Right.
Yes.
Right. You're not thinking of the bigger picture. You're not carrying around a strategy map. And I had never realized that. I think I thought that, heck, if you were in, 4 Corps, you would know what was going on in I Corps, but of course you don't. Jack Coyle, were you going to say something?
Yeah, a couple things. Pete was talking about the dereliction of duty, that book. I've never been so mad in my life when I got that book and read it. I had to put it down 2 or 3 times. So I recommend anybody to read that book. You're talking about aircraft too in Vietnam. My cousin was there really early and he flew the F-86 and told me, he says, I am not going back there. And he was over there about 3 or 4 years before I was there. And I was located right along the coast, outside the Saigon Bay. And we used to watch the USS New Jersey shooting their 16-inch shells. And we get fly up behind it and watch it arc over, then you couldn't see it anymore. And just watching that thing fire was just unbelievable. And of course, as all the Air Force guys, all the pilots know, there was no fly zones and you had to check that all the time. And we were always going out in our choppers. And just to see those bomb strikes in the Delta, the craters, was unbelievable.
So neat. And Pat Hughes, I will invite you to unmute, start talking. If you get your mic working, it may be, as Ellie put in the chat here, it may be, I know that Julia's had this problem. If you have your earbuds plugged into your laptop, sometimes that mutes your microphone and you have to unplug your earbuds and then unmute your microphone. And sometimes it works that way, but who knows? This technology is, you're late. Larry Googans.
No, I'm just going real quick, but I was going back to Cambodia, and I was there during that period of time, and we were authorized to fly into Cambodia, like kind of. The only thing we were allowed to carry were cluster bomb units, CBU, and it was a CBU-2. You can Google it if you care, Todd.
Yep.
And it carried a bomblet called a BLU-3.
Yep.
That's all we were able to carry. We couldn't drop any bombs. We couldn't drop anything from the air because someone might see us or make a big bang. So we carried these little cluster bomb units. And if you look at them, they come out of the tail of the airplane and then they open up. And Pete, guess where they landed?
In the trees.
In the trees. In the trees. And they went off and they lit up the trees and did all kinds of fancy tree stuff, and they went off in the trees. But we weren't allowed to carry anything, and the routes were restricted, so we wouldn't go around any of their restricted areas and all that. It was, as we all have said many times, yeah, that's it. It dribbled out the back of the airplane and sometimes would actually bounce off the belly and explode in the belly of the airplane. Fortunately, most of the explosion went behind us. But anyway, we hated them. I hated them. They were useless. They were useless, and so was a lot of the things we did during the war, of course. But yeah, this is with halfway into Cambodia, and we weren't allowed to do anything. And I think we've all addressed that. And that's the way we fought the war.
I thought it was interesting.
Half-assed.
Yeah, interesting too that Nixon announced that we were going to start bombing Cambodia and start bombing in Laos. And there were so many craters already in those countries that they look like the moon. So I think, and I told Todd this first time I talked to him, the Russians knew what we were doing, the Chinese knew, the North Vietnamese, the Laotians, the Thais, the Cambodians, the South Vietnamese, everybody knew what we were doing except the American people. The French knew what we were doing, okay? It was by the way, I want to mention this too. And I think Jack Cole will back me up on this. I didn't know if you knew this, but when the Paris Peace Accords were signed, finally, okay, it covered all the POWs in North Vietnam, and there was big hoorah about bringing them home, and it should have been. It was great to see those boys come home. They had suffered enough. But the Paris Peace Accords, when it was signed, it did not cover any POWs held in South Vietnam, Laos, or Cambodia. Now, you asked me if we left boys over there. I know we left some boys over there.
Pat Hughes, I think we're unmuted now.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, can do.
Just a couple factoids, I guess. Number one, I had orders to Cambodia. I finished degree completion program in the end of '72 and got orders to go to French language school down in Monterey because I was being assigned to the military equipment delivery team in Cambodia. And I was there, got in class. I was there about 4 or 5 days. My family moved with me. And then I got orders from Washington. I had to go. They wanted me to drop out of there and go to Korea. They had an emergency requirement. So I didn't get to go to Cambodia, but I sure missed that I didn't get that French language qualification. The second factoid that I think is, and we didn't touch upon it, we talked about the Air Force and the delivery of all these various agents, Agent Orange, Agent White, Agent Purple. You know, I served there my first tour, and not one word was said about the danger of these defoliants. I saw some things down. I saw troops with no shirts on, just fatigue shorts cut down, spraying Agent Orange, and I don't tell you, it's criminal that we didn't get briefed on the ramifications of Agent Orange. I'm a classic example. I'm 100% disabled because of diabetes, and my brothers had 2 bouts of, my identical twin brother who was there with me, 2 bouts of bladder cancer already, and his son, firstborn post-Vietnam son, has 2 bouts of bladder cancer. So there's a lot of baggage about this Agent Orange.
Pat, your twin brother was with you in Vietnam?
Right. He was a company commander and at the port there at Cam Ranh Bay. And I was the aircraft maintenance officer for the 173rd. airborne, and we started out at Benoit, and then ended up that was, I believe, was that 3 Corps or 2 Corps, and all the way up to 1 Corps. So we moved a lot. We were under OPCON to the 4th Infantry Division there at Pleiku. And of course, as you know, we got decimated at Hill 875 there in November of 1967.
That was Dak To, right?
Yeah, Dak To, yes, right.
You were there during Dak To?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
But the infantry really caught it bad. It was terrible. We talked about the forward air controllers. They got flustered, and there was a lot of action that day, and they called airstrikes on our positions there, and it was very serious problem. But anyway,
Pat,
those are 2 interesting factoids I wanted to share with you.
I know that you just wanted to share a couple of factoids. I'm going to have your poor mother.
Well, we both got telegrams that saying, we want you and you're coming. I was in degree completion program, and they said, you got to come back on active duty. And during that war, they were going to get anybody. And, unless you resigned your commission and it'd be held, they wouldn't accept it. You were going to war, period. End of story.
You both came home. Did you come home around the same time?
Yeah, right. He came home about 8 weeks after me.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Please, Pat, if you would share pictures sometime, if you have them, if you could share them with me, I would love to show some pictures and have you talk more about that.
No, I showed you my 173rd album, and I'll probably send that to you one of these days.
Okay.
But I was in the line. We were moving all the time. I didn't get to. It was not a social event. It was pretty.
You weren't like a tourist, taking pictures.
No, it was pretty tough. I lived in a field in a tent from the day I got there to the day I left. And of course, my brother's a company commander. He lived a lot better. Anyway, but that's just what I wanted to share with the group, and I'll get off the stage while you're listening.
Oh, Pat, that is so interesting. Clem Blazewick, were you going to say something, Clem? Oh, I think you're.
Pat?
Yep.
Had a question for Pat.
Jack Coyle has a question for you, Pat.
Were you at Fort Eustis to get your training in aviation maintenance officers course?
Yes, I did. I was commissioned in the infantry, and when they recalled me, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
They recalled me to active duty. They said, would you like to be the aircraft maintenance officer at 173rd? And of course, it took me about 15 nanoseconds to say, well, that'd be fine, because as a second lieutenant, of course, I got promoted when the day they called me active duty to first lieutenant. I knew that my life expectancy was not all that great as an infantry platoon leader.
Yeah.
So
I was stationed there at Fort Eustis too in '67, and that's where I got my AMOC training.
I went to AMOC. Our class commander was a guy named Paul Clements, an aviator. I think I graduated from AMOC in end of June or 1st of July, I don't remember exactly, of 1967, and I was in Vietnam in September.
Oh, okay. I was there August of '68 to '69. And before that, you know where Aviation Material Laboratories was?
No.
At Fort Eustis?
No, we didn't. We didn't have anything to do with that. I don't know. I was a student.
Yeah, I know. I was there beforehand, and the colonel there, my boss, it was 200 civilians and 20 officers.
Yeah.
And when I told him I was getting ready to go to Vietnam, he said, "Do you realize the death rate of first and second lieutenants in the transportation corps is almost the same as the infantry.
Right.
And I said, what are you talking about? He says, they're knocking off convoy commanders like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what got me into aviation maintenance. And I ended up at 380 Transportation Company down in the Delta area. I was a rotary wing platoon leader.
Right.
Hey,
Well,
Tom, can I follow up on something that Pat said?
Please do.
I think everybody's familiar with the Sullivan brothers that we
Yes.
lost in World War II.
right. Yeah,
the
the
ship.
Fighting Sullivans, yes.
That's correct, sir. And after that, they were not supposed to serve in the same ship, same tank, whatever.
Right.
That was on the rule books, but they didn't apply it. I have the Morse brothers I interviewed. They were twin brothers. They landed on Omaha Beach together. Okay. I interviewed a Hattendorf. Hattendorf was a P-38 pilot. His wingman was his kid brother. So in Vietnam, the same thing happened. And I want to mention Agent Orange too. If you go to my website, veteransarticle.com, click on the logo for Vietnam. There's an article in there that I wrote about the chemist, Lieutenant Colonel Grimes. He was a chemist, and he was there when they first started dealing with Agent Orange. He said, we weren't warned about it. We didn't know anything about it.
No.
He would actually take the top off of the drums and use his arm to swirl.
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, he just passed away with the effects from Agent Orange. People don't realize this. Also on the Vietnam logo, there's Lou. She was a nurse in Vietnam. She has horrible effects from Agent Orange. Well, how in the world did a nurse get it? Okay. They were usually in a safe. When the guys came in, just like he was saying, their uniforms sometimes were covered in Agent Orange.
Right.
And these nurses had to cut off their uniforms. So more people were exposed to Agent Orange than they knew, even guys in Thailand, because some of the bases there around the perimeter, they didn't know it, were sprayed with Agent Orange in case insurgents hit them like they did down in Ubon a couple times. So that's our cross to bear from Vietnam. I just sent a Marine flag to a guy that is dying from Agent Orange. I don't know if you guys knew it. It's a mathematical possibility that the World War II veterans may outlive us.
Pete, just one thing.
Yes, sir.
My brother and I were identical twins. So that's the rest of the story.
Yeah.
And
so
you
just fooled them. Well,
DOD,
they thought they were dealing with one guy. Yeah.
DOD didn't even mention about you don't have to go. We were going, and we felt we should do our duty, and we did it.
Yes, sir. I understand that. There were ladies during World War II that wrote President Roosevelt and said, "Don't you dare separate my boys. You keep them together."
Oh yeah, you're right.
Roosevelt would get with the whoever, the Air Force, Army, and keep them together. Right. So, yeah.
You remember the Morrison twins?
Yeah, I just brought them Mike Morris and yeah, the Morris twins. They're the ones landed on Utah Beach together.
Yeah.
Pete, yeah. Could you please share your story? I know, I'm looking at the clock here, and I'd love to have you back on, because what you're doing, Pete, is you're generating this wonderful conversation among the Vietnam veterans here. And it's you who are doing it with all these rapid fire insights and stories. But I do want you to share the story of how you got to Vietnam from Thailand, because you did 18 months in Thailand, and then you did a year in Vietnam at Tan Son Nhut.
Right. Well, I had my orders for Vietnam, and foolishly, I stayed up all night long playing poker at the local club before catching the C-130 the next morning. Overslept, got to the a little tower there at the terminal, and the C-130 was taking off. I'd missed a flight. So I said, well, I'll catch another one. So I threw my duffel back down, laid down, everything. All of a sudden, I heard everybody go, "Hut!" All right. Well, General Willie McBride was coming through the terminal. He's a one-star general. He's the man I worked for. And I sprang up, and he said, "Mecca, what are you doing here?" I said, "I'm on my way to Vietnam, sir, but I missed my flight." He said, "Why?" I said, "Well, I was up all night playing poker." He said, I'm not talking about that, Mecca. Why are you going to Vietnam? I said, I volunteered. He said, you've already been over here over a year. Have you been home to see your folks? I said, yes, sir. He said, where are you going? I said, Tonson Newt. He said, well, I'm on my way there now. So you can ride with me. I said, great. So I thought I was going to get on another C-130. No, I got on General McBride's private Learjet. All right. He was up with the pilot. He wanted to get some flight time in, log some time as a pilot. I was the only passenger on that Learjet. There I am, a sergeant, sitting there in a Learjet on my way to Vietnam. Now, understand Learjet goes a little bit faster than a C-130. We landed just about the same time C-130 did. And I remember General McBride coming back. He talked to me like he was my son. He asked me what I was going to do after Vietnam. Was I going back to college? How my folks were? Was I engaged? Had a wife? All that kind of good stuff. And I always remember that. The one-star general that came back and treated the sergeant like a son. But when we landed, I'd already saluted the general and we were deplaning. He went first and I was just a little bit above the general in the Learjet. He turned around and offered me his hand. He shook my hand and I shook his. And he said, best of luck, Mecca. Okay, I said, well, thank you, sir. Well, the C-130 was parked a little bit of ways and some of the guys I knew were deplaning from the C-130. And they saw me shaking hands with the general. He's below me and I'm standing above this general shaking his hand, okay? The guys didn't talk to me for like 2 and 3 weeks. And I was going, what's going on here? I finally cornered one guy, Bill. I said, Bill, what's going on? Man, what's wrong with you guys? You treat me like I got scurvy or something. He said, you're not fooling us, Pete. We know you're with the CIA. I said, what are you talking about? Come on, Pete. We saw you shaking hands with a general and you're standing above him in a Learjet. You got to be CIA, man. We don't trust you. So it took me a long time to convince those guys, hey, I'm just a lowly sergeant intelligence, just like you guys are. But that's how I got to Vietnam, on a Learjet with a one-star general.
That's a great story, Pete.
Yeah.
So you
Todd?
did, yeah.
Ask him about how he almost got court-martialed by a general when he was in Vietnam.
I have not heard that story, I don't think, Pete.
Jack, you talk about when I was flat on the rescue missions?
Yeah, and the general found out about it since you had a TS clearance.
Well, that was in Thailand. That was General McBride.
Right.
What happened? I had a lot of contacts, you know, playing poker. We had a casino in the Airmen's Club, but I would sneak on some rescue flights on the Jolly Greens and other choppers. Go over the Ho Chi Minh Trail, go into Cambodia, Laos mainly, and I went as a gunner sometimes. Okay. I wasn't supposed to do that. I had top secret crypto. Like a lot of the Air Force pilots I talked to, you find out you're not as tough as you think you are if you're captured by the North Vietnamese. So God knows they probably gotten information out of me, but the general found out about it through the channel and he called me in there and he said, Mecca, I appreciate the fact that you are going on some rescue missions. I know you're gung-ho and everything else, but if you go on another one, I'm going to court-martial you and you're going to Leavenworth, son, because they will find the information out from you and you stay right here where you're supposed to be. And the only thing I did was salute the men and say, yes, sir. That was it. If I had completed that and if I'd been shot down, God knows what would happen to me, but General wouldn't have any part of it. So yeah, I avoided court-martial by agreeing to stay on the ground.
And what were you doing? And oh yeah, Clem Blazewick. Yes. How are you? We can't hear you, Clem. You know, you're muted now. You were unmuted before, but we couldn't hear you. Could have been the same problem that Pat Hughes was having. Let me look at your microphone here. I am doing a quick review and see if I could see anything on my end. That may be the problem. No, you do. Your microphone is connected, so it may just. Do you have anything plugged in? Any earphones plugged into your machine? Okay. Sorry about that. Not sure what that could be.
Todd,
Yes.
Don here.
Hey, Don Patton from Minnesota.
I had a couple of things that I didn't get to Vietnam. I was actually in the service supporting a French Air Force unit, providing them with nuclear warheads before Vietnam really started, but was on an isolated site. And the comments that were made about knowing what was going on.
Yeah.
We had AFN from Munich, but you know, you're doing long days, sleeping, doing what soldiers do, and you know, it's what's around you. It's not what's over the horizon. But I think that's goes on all the time. I that didn't do it, but I did want to chime in here on a couple of things. I am derelict, Pete. I know that I owe you communications, and we will do it at a future time. I actually have a program tomorrow night, and I'm really sad that I'm going to miss Todd's program tomorrow night with Gershaw. That should be a great program. But I'm derelict in talking to Pete. The thing that any of you that were in aerial reconnaissance, if you go to our web page, I did a program back in January, which is online on YouTube, with Rob Ellers. This is, of course, World War II, but Rob did a book called Targeting the Reich. And the book is Targeting the Reich is available. It's by Kansas Press, but you can go to our webpage and see his presentation on YouTube through our webpage. And also, Glenn, I owe you communications, but I've had just a bunch of stuff going on. And like I say, I've got a program tomorrow night. We're doing a program on paperclip. How they got the Nazi von Braun and a bunch of intelligence guys that you guys in the intel community probably knew about, that came in around immigration laws then, as we were hearing about south of the border right now. But Todd, I just wanted to pay tribute to the great work that you're doing. And I wish I could chime every time, but end up with conflicts. But tribute to all of you that support Todd and what he's trying to do for the veterans.
Thank you, Don. And you know, the reason you can't chime in or tune in every time is because you're doing your own great work. And I put your website here on the Zoom side in the chat. Don is the founder and the head, has been for many years, of a wonderful, robust World War II roundtable in Minnesota. You could click to, man, if you click that link and you go to that site, you're going to write off the next 2 weeks, because you're just going to be watching wonderful talk after talk after talk that have been given over the years at the World War II roundtable. And the
Is that the Deutsch Roundtable?
yes,
It is,
yes, that's it.
Yeah, he was my professor at the U of M.
How about that?
Yeah, many years ago. Yep.
How
Good
about
man.
that?
Good man.
You know, I want to.
Where are you located?
I'm in Atlanta right now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I want to share with you the event that Don alluded to tomorrow night at 7 p.m. We're having our own World War II roundtable. We call it Greatest Generation Live. And we're having author Alex Kershaw, who's written many books about World War II, best-selling books. One was The Liberator, which is kind of a biography, an account of Felix Sparks, who became the commander of the 45th Infantry Division in Europe and fought his way from North Africa, or I should say Sicily, all the way through to Dachau at the end of the war. And the special thing about this event that we're having, it's not just Kershaw who's joining us, but Guy Prestia, who turns 99 years old next month, who served in the same company as Felix Sparks, who when he was a company commander. And Guy is just a wonderful kind of voice of history. And we're so happy he lives in Newcastle. And we're so happy that, Evans City? I think it's is it Evans City or
Elwood City.
Elwood City. Elwood City. He lives in Elwood City. I think he's from Newcastle originally. And so Guy's going to join us. Alex Kershaw is going to join us. We're going to have Denise Neal from the 45th Infantry Division Museum. So please do join us tomorrow. It's at the same Zoom link here at 7 p.m. Glenn, do you have any Flickinger? Do you have anything to add about this program?
Not too much. You're very eloquent with that already. One little twist, just in the last couple days, is Jeff Mann, who was Carl Mann's son, is going to be on. Carl Mann, who was also a member of Felix Sparks' battalion when he became a battalion commander in France, and was at Dachau. Carl Mann was the interpreter, the German interpreter. Carl Mann was born in Germany and came to the United States as a child. He was the interpreter there at Dachau when Sparks and the 45th liberated Dachau. Carl, 96, 97, can't be on, but his son will be on. I've talked to him several times, and he can speak rather well for Carl and the episodes there at Dachau at the end of the war.
I also did want to, Mark Spira-Digliosi, he did a wonderful interview for the Army Heritage Center in Carlisle. It's online. I put the link here in the Zoom side. I do encourage you to read it. I want to have Mark back on and talk about some. Mark, do you recognize this guy in this picture? Look at that.
He sure isn't very pretty, Todd, but I do know that guy. And he was a heck of a lot younger back then. That'll be 53 years ago on April 4th.
Oh my.
So it's a long time. But and I'll gladly come out and chat a bit about it if you like.
Oh, I think that, yeah, that would be so interesting. And also, is Bill Moran still on? I want to show I'm still here. Oh, you're still here. Okay, Bill. Yeah. And the only reason I've called you out is because I want to embarrass you. Here is look at this guy. Bill. Is this you?
We must have just come in because I have a little bit of a beard there, I think. Back to that was our amazing fire base, I think, in Cambodia. Just a berm.
Bill was part of the Cambodian invasion. He was with the 199th Light Infantry Regiment. Brigade. Yeah. And his wonderful story and wonderful photos. Look at that. Boy, oh boy. Look at that t-shirt, that poor t-shirt.
It's the body below it that counts.
You guys look like the Vietnam version of Malden's Willie and Joe right there. Just wonderful. Man, terrific. Right. Guys, thank you. Clem, I did hear your voice. If you wanted to say something, I think you're working now.
Can you hear me, Todd?
I can.
Okay. I'm not getting any indications on this end. I don't know what I did. I played with this thing. I got it working, but Pete Mecca had mentioned about the how does this nurse come down with get Agent Orange? And well, yeah, of course they did have to take the clothes off of a lot of the injured soldiers. But the 93rd Evac Hospital where I served was 19 miles north of Saigon. Before it was built, that was nothing but a forested area, and it was totally sprayed with Agent Orange. And there was a creek right behind the hospital. And that's where we got our water from every single day to wash our clothes, brush our teeth, shave, what have you. All of us.
Yeah.
I worked in a lab. We had a Mama San come in to clean up the lab tubes and lab gear, things that we had, everything in the lab. All the water we used in that hospital for I don't know how long came right from that creek right there. So the very possible nurses could have gotten it just from that using the water there.
Absolutely.
Hey, Todd.
Yeah.
when I was at the VA and I asked one doctor, how the hell did I get Agent Orange when they purified the water? And he laughed. He said, yeah, they took out the bacteria and the viruses. However, Monsanto forgot to tell them, oh, by the way, this is how you get dioxin out of the water. So, and then he went on to say, oh, and by the way, the purification process doubled and tripled the concentration of dioxin.
Yeah.
Thank you, Monsanto. That's all I got to say.
Dan
Hey,
Vaughn.
I had a question.
Yes.
Do you know anything about SACO, World War II unit? SACO.
Yes, we interviewed somebody with it, who served in it.
I'm the historian for it.
Whoa.
And historian for the Pacific CBI theater, stuff like that. But I'm the historian for SACO. And as Pete knows, I got so much stuff about SACO. I get calls all the time asking about, can you help me find my relative on that? So.
Oh, that's terrific.
Hey, Jack. Jack,
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Jack, you and Pete mentioned it, the title of a book, but I didn't get the full name of it.
Dereliction of Duty.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. All right.
You need to read it. Everybody needs to read it.
Yeah, I did read that quite a few years ago, actually. Yeah, but I didn't hear it today.
Dan
Todd,
Vaughn.
if I can help you anyway on that, then hopefully I can join you tomorrow. But if I can help you anyway, giving you some information about that, and if you can find out who you interviewed, I appreciate it because I probably know him.
Guy Tressler.
Oh yeah, I knew Guy.
Oh, Guy was from our area. He's from the Pittsburgh area. Here, I'll put the link right here in the Zoom side to the interview we did with him. Wonderful man.
Yeah, he's passed away.
He did pass away. Yes, he did pass away. But it was the first I had heard of SACO and or SACO, I guess it's called, and the Rice Paddy Navy served in China. Dan Vaughn.
Yeah, if I can just interject here a little bit. Talking about the B-52 strikes up in the I Corps when we were up there. Our outfit was close enough that we could actually feel the concussion from those B-52 runs. It was incredible. It really, really was. Just, you wonder if anybody could live through that, but apparently they did. So that's all. In regards to those initials on the letters in boot camp, yeah, I had to pay for those. Every letter had to be 20 push-ups.
And that was SWAK, sealed with a kiss.
And ILY.
I love you.
Yeah, I had to do 20 push-ups each one. The drill instructor gave us 3 days to get a letter back home to stop that. And by the time the letter got back, I received 2 more and I had to do penalties for because he just didn't understand what they were, and he didn't like them on the back of the letters. But then again, that was Paris Autumn, so you know.
I love it. Well, it's good to hear from the Marines tonight, Dan Vaughn. Thank you for chiming in. Yes, Pete.
One of my Marine buddies served, of course, in I Corps, and if they were in danger of being overrun, they would call the arc light strikes, the B-52s.
Right.
Sometimes it was so close, that the concussions would make them bleed from their noses, their eyes, their ears, but they would still jump up and down for joy, saying, hit the son of a bitches, hit the son of a bitches. Okay. Yeah, it's an awesome thing to witness, but you want to be far away from it. Same thing with New Jersey shells coming in on you.
Yeah, Pete, remember Frank Matkins, he was there at Contien and he told you the same thing.
Yeah.
In his interview.
Yeah, sure did.
Oh, guys, this is terrific. Pete Mecca, thank you for joining us tonight. And I do want to have you come back. I'd love to continue this conversation. I have a feeling we're going to be interacting a lot. You know, we're trotting the same ground. We're trying to cover these stories, get these stories out to the public. We didn't even get you out of, we got you just landed in Tan Son Nhut and didn't even get beyond that about your service in Vietnam and coming home and, you know, what you've been doing recently these past few years. So I'd love to have you come back if you would agree to it.
Thank you. I remember the first day in Vietnam, I went straight to Tudo Street.
I'm afraid to ask what was on Tudo Street.
You don't need to know.
Okay. All right.
I think everybody that was in Saigon knows Tudo Street. Thank you for this, guys. Welcome home, everybody. This was a great, great thrill for me to talk to some veterans. Todd, I love what you're doing. Be glad to come back anytime just to participate.
Pete, thank you. And despite his accent, his father was from Pennsylvania.
That's right.
And he's Italian.
Hey, when I used to go to Pennsylvania reunions, the girls were crazy about me because of my little accent from the South. That little Southern boy, shoot you, man.
Oh, what fun this is. This is such a blast. All right. Good night, everybody. And I will hope to see you tomorrow night for Chris.